Well, hello guys. Had to get everything set up, our recording and everything for those who aren't going to be here. So, tell me about your questions.
I did not get to re-review chapter 13, so most of my stuff is from 14 and 15. Did y'all have any questions from 13?
I had one from 13. I think I just need the explanation on like the visceral sensory area. I didn't understand that when I was studying it.
Okay, hang on just a second. Let me get stuff in here. So, you guys you have questions on 13? Let me get
I
there.
actually found one I have a question on for 13 of what I did get to go back over, and it's
Uh-huh.
I think it's slide 24.
Okay. Let me pull up those. Let's see. Okay. Let's. uh, Okay. Let's just do 13 to start with, since that's the one where we have the questions. Okay. Let me share this with you guys. Okay. Can you guys see the PowerPoint?
I can.
Okay.
I can.
Okay. And you said slide number 40?
I think it's 24. It's
Oh,
cerebral,
24. Okay.
cerebral hemisphere 9A.
Okay. Oh, 9A. Let's go back a little. No, wait a minute. Let's see. 9B, 9A. Okay. There's not going to be a lot on the basal nuclei. I really want you to know that these things they exist, and these guys are intimately components of the thalamus. You remember our switching system? So as far as knowing all of the individuals, you don't have to, because it's not on your lab list either. And so it's not really something that's super essential. These guys are going to be involved, substantia nigra. It's going to be involved in muscle motor neurons going out to innervate our muscles, and the diencephalon is going to be basically the thalamus, although we've got the hypothalamus and the pineal gland. Now, was there anything specific about this that you wanted to ask me?
So on the notes that I took in class, I had put switching system, and I didn't know what that meant.
Okay, so you remember the homunculus where we saw how different parts of the precentral gyrus are involved with motor and different parts of the body. And the sensory homunculus showed you how on the postcentral gyrus, a certain part of that gyrus is involved with each part of the body. So when you have motor neurons going out, say you want to flex your arm, then it has to be routed through the right nerve to get down to there. Does that kind of make sense?
A
Here,
little bit, yeah.
let me,
It's still confusing.
yeah, okay. So there's the motor neuron in the cortex. This guy is going to go, where's my pen? There it is. And he's going to talk to a neuron in the thalamus. This one in the thalamus is going to go all the way down and talk to a neuron in the spine, which is going to go out and synapse on a muscle. So what this guy is doing is making sure it gets to the right destination. How about that?
Yeah, that makes a little more sense.
That's when we say it's a switching thing. It's like you mail a letter and all those letters go to a big postal facility in Atlanta. They sort them and make sure they go to the right post office, and then the post office gets them to the right, house. So it's kind of the same way. It's like a big switching facility to make sure that if this part of the precentral gyrus controls the the arm, then this is going to make sure it gets to like the biceps or the brachialis or one of those muscles, so that what the brain wants, flexion, say you've got a glass of water, you have to flex your arm to bring it up to your lips. And that's a little bit more complicated, but you get the picture. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. They're not going to ask a lot of in-depth questions about this, guys. It's just not something that they do because I don't know why. We used to, but I got taken off the lab list, and it's makes it easier for you guys. Okay. Anything else in 13, guys, before I close it down?
Yes.
Anyone?
Towards the bottom around 94, 95, when it's talking about the different pathways.
Okay. Right here?
Yes. Starting there. Just about
I'm sorry. Let me turn my sound up.
if you could just touch on the like the different pathways, like the ascending pathways and the
This is I see what you're saying. So let me get a pen again. Okay, so here's a level of the spine. We're going to have some fibers that are going up. Now those are going to be from basically this area right here, because remember that's where the neuron is that the one in the dorsal root ganglion speaks with. So he's going to send his up, and actually it's going to be on this area. And then you're going to have the descending pathways, which is motor commands, and they're eventually going to make their way here because this is where the motor nucleus. So we've got the ascending and descending. It makes sense. Ascending is going to be sensory, right? It's carrying information to the brain. The descending is going to be the actual commands from the brain for the muscles to move in a certain way. Now, transverse, we saw that when we were doing that on the reflexes we were talking about the crossed flexor reflex. How if you're bent over and if you withdraw your arm or your hand from some sort of painful stimulus, and if you don't do anything else, you're going to face plant. So what we have, so let's just say I'm bent over like a stove. I accidentally touch it, it's hot. This guy in here is going to send an order to this guy, move that hand off of there. But at the same time, he has to go and talk to this guy and tell him, put the other hand down. You remember when we did that? I showed you how bent over we flex one, but we have to extend the other. Same thing with the legs. That would be a transverse communication. So the two sides of the spine can actually communicate with each other. How's that, guys?
The transverse part makes sense. The two different sides talking to each other.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't jerk your hand up or your leg up from something that's hurting you. If you're off balance, you're going to have to extend the other one. So they have to communicate. The up and down is it's like an elevator. The sensory information loads it onto an elevator, sends it up to the brain. The brain puts it on a different elevator and sends down commands. This is what I want you to do. How about that?
So can you think of like a test question related to that off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, they could just plain out ask you of the three directions that the communication occurs in the spine. It converges upward, it converges downward from the brain, and then it converges side to side. Now, as far as the white columns, this is something we did on the lab. There's the posterior white, the lateral, and this is the anterior. And of course, you've got the same one on the other side. Let's see. That's about as far as they go in it. Yeah, that's about as far as. Well, we've got these, but this is a little bit more than you guys need to know, and there's not going to be a lot on there. As far as these different tracks, the spinal thalamic, spinal cerebellar, you don't have to go into great depth about that. Don't think there's anything else. There's a lot more information here than you need. The spinal thalamic, going from the spine to the thalamus, things like pain, temperature, touch and pressure, the stuff we talked about in the skin. But you don't really need to know that. I think you would be good with this. Now, obviously, a lot of the sensor is going to be going up the posterior columns. You don't have to know the exact nuclei. And then a lot of the autonomic is going to be going through the lateral, and a lot of the motor is coming down from the brain. Now, the lateral dorsal or the lateral column is also going to be motor because the ANS is motor too. How about that, guys?
I wish I could say it made sense, but it's just confusing.
Well, let's see. Is there a different way to say this? So those columns are nothing but, it's like a cable. The cables that they use to send the internet all over the world that's on the bottom of the ocean, right? Those cables have a lot of wires in them. And so if you think about these as being cables, this is just groups of axons. In the case right here, they're coming down from the brain. And in these cases, no, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. These are, no, I did. I said coming down to the brain, and no, they're going up to the brain, sorry. And these are the ones that are coming down. So these guys are going to motor neurons, either anatomic or autonomic or motor, the somatic, and the other guys are sending information up. How about that?
It's making a little more sense. I feel like I need to read more.
I would do that. Check out some of the videos, but just be careful because a lot of those are intended for like medical students, and this is going to be way more than you guys are going to need for this test. Be way
Okay.
more than you would need for nursing school.
And then what about the for the ascending pathways, how it says like first order neuron, second order neuron, third order? Like, do
Yeah,
we
now
need to go
that
in
we
depth
can,
about that?
yeah, we talked about that a little bit in the class, but I will be glad to do that. Okay, the first order neuron is going to be in the cortex. Oh, wait a minute. Let's talk about sensory. Sensory, the first order neuron is going to be right there. Let's see. We're going to talk. Let's see. What are they talking? Yeah, they are talking sensory. The first order neuron. Let's see I just draw over here. The first order neuron is right there. That's going to be the dorsal root ganglia. That's for the sensory. The second order neuron is going to be right there. That's going to be the guy that he's going to be talking to. So that's the first order, and that's the second order. Now he's going up, usually through these guys, and the third order neuron is going to be in the thalamus. Let's see. Let's see. Cell body in the thalamus extends to the somatosensory cortex. Let's go back here. And then the cell body is in the thalamus, but it actually synapses with a neuron that's in the cortex. How about that?
Is my thing is there's just so much information. It's hard to know like what to go in depth to know for the test versus what we just have to like know the surface of.
Oh well, I've already cut a chunk of it down. There is a lot.
I know.
It's it's
It's
far.
just I don't know. I guess this just isn't my thing that's clicking. This chapter is just kicking my butt.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's kind of difficult, guys. There's no doubt about that. So first order is going to be the sensory neuron. The second order is going to be that guy that's in the spinal cord. Third order is going to be the one in the thalamus. That's basically the simplest way to say that
Okay.
about it. Sometimes it helps us do. For me, it was always helpful to do stick figures to show where everything was going. Get rid of some of that extraneous. So there's the sensory neuron. That's the first. The second's over here in the spine. The third is in the thalamus. That's as bare bones as you get. But try doing that. It helped me to just get rid of all the excess clutter and just go to the basics. And that's the basics right there.
Okay.
Sound good? Or
Sounds as
no?
good as it's gonna get.
Gotcha. It's not easy, guys.
Yeah, it's a
No
lot.
way.
And
And I
then
wish I could think of a way to make it easy. If I did, I would have made it easy for me when I was learning this stuff.
Right. And then, should we know? I mean, obviously, we need to know all this stuff. Like, I know that, but the difference in like the Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Huntington's, cerebral palsy.
Those make really great bonus questions. You need to know this stuff right here. That's kind of super important. Polio, you just need to know that it affects the motor syndrome or the motor neurons, and it's more or less extinct, at least in our part of the world. They still give vaccinations for it, but it's kind of gone. ALS, we've talked about. We've had a good PowerPoint on that. Hydrocephalus, it's just the spinal fluid is being filtered into the brain, but for some reason it can't get back to the venous system, so it's kind of building up. Strokes, oh gosh, yes, you're going to need to know that. Traumatic brain injury, there's really concussion and contusion. The coup counter coup, I told you, is when you go forward and hit the front of your brain on the inside of the skull, and then when you rebound off, it hits the back. Diffuse axonal injury, that is the shaken baby syndrome. That is absolute child abuse.
Which one is that?
Diffuse axonal injury. It's when the axons, when the babies are shaken, it's very similar to a concussion, but the baby's shaken so much that it can get some tears in the axons. And it's bad news. Epilepsy, we talked about, not too much. The seizures, the absence and tonic-clonic, that's all that we've got on that. Don't worry about these. We got drugs. You don't have to know that. It's good, but you don't have to. Degenerative, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, dementia. There's all kinds that basically wind up with the same thing. Alzheimer's, no one's really absolutely sure what's going on with that. Parkinson's, we talked about that. That's sad. Huntington's, genetic defect that each generation the defect gets worse and worse until it actually results in disease. And disc herniation, that's pretty straightforward. How about that, guys? As far as our clinical correlates.
That helps some.
Okay. Anything, any particular one of these you need for me to go into any more depth on?
I'm not sure. Like I said, it's just a lot
It
in general.
is.
So
It is. It gets worse as we go along too.
I love to hear that.
I'm sorry. I want to be upfront.
No, I
AMP2
understand.
is a lot more in depth.
I didn't get to re-review 13, so that one I didn't have a chance to like read and go into a lot of
Chapter
questions.
13? Yeah.
Yeah, I went backwards and started with 15.
Okay.
So unless Haley and Brittany have any more questions, I don't know of any off the top of my head for 13.
Anyone else?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, well, we will stop this guy and tell me what else you guys want to talk about.
For chapter 14, I have a couple questions if you want to get 14 pulled up.
Well, I got a lot of 14s. You mean the...
I
think we skipped the A and B. I think we actually did just the little one.
The 36 slides, the first picture, or the first slide says peripheral nervous system.
Yep, got it. Okay, let me share that with you guys and we will get going. Okay. Here we go. All righty. So, you guys got it?
I do.
Okay. Anything in particular on here, guys, that you're interested in knowing more about?
My first one is about slide 5, I think it is.
Oh, okay. They're just talking about the different types of sensory cells. We did a little bit of this when we did the skin. The free nerve endings, temperature and pain. The encapsulated are almost all going to be pressure sensors of one type or another. And then you got things like this where you have a glial cell in between with this sensory cell. The one I'm thinking about is that Merkel's disc, which actually kind of synapses with another one. And then this guy looks more like, well, actually, that kind of looks almost like a bipolar cell. But I'm guessing this is what they're calling the bipolar. But really, these are the two main ones. And down here is where they're going to talk about these free nerve endings, the tactile disc, the hair receptors, that which were basically just free nerve endings as well. Let's see. The encapsulated mechanoreceptors. There's that bipolar, and there's the rod cell. Wish we could have got that in, but it was just too much. And that's pretty much all it. As far as this, you're not going to see anything like this on the test. It'll be really more from these guys about the different types. And we talked about most of these when we did the skin, so it's kind of a review. How about that?
Can you go over about the bipolar cell? Just touch base on that if that's something that might be on the test.
Well, I can talk about it. Bipolar cell has two processes. One is going to be the dendrites or the receptor, and the other is going to be the axon sending the signal off. That's mostly going to be in like the nose and in the cornea of the eye, and I can't see that it's going to be on this test. Now, this is something we talked about when we were in chapter 12, and it might probably will be something about it on the final, but that's one thing at a time. We got to get past this first test before we worry about the final. How about that?
Sounds fine.
Okay.
And then the somatosensory, I tried even like looking up stuff and it just still confused me.
Somatosensory, you talking about the processing? Or
like just because a couple slides down it talks about the 3 main levels to operate in the somatosensory, and I just started to get confused from there.
is this what you were talking about? The integration?
I just wrote down somatosensory, so I don't remember like where exactly, but around slide 9 is where it started.
Slide 9?
Around there, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. That's that same thing. Okay, sensation, and we actually talked about this on chapter 13, but we'll do it again. So the sensation, and again, we'll just take the skin since we know all about that. This guy's going to send an axon out, and it's either going to be a free nerve ending or encapsulated, but whatever. So the sensation is when this guy is going to measure what he's designed for, whether it's pressure or temperature. He's going to send his axon to that second order neuron we talked about. Now, this is the circuit level. This is the sensory level. The circuit level is actually going up from the spine to the thalamus and then going to the sensory cortex. the somatosensory cortex, where it comes about. That and the somatosensory association area are going to put that sensation together and figure out what it is. So everybody has probably had a mosquito crawl on their arm at one point or another. So if you feel something bumping into the hairs on your arm, this guy is going to send the information here. The circuit is going to make sure it gets here in the cortex. The cortex and his association area is going to look, I remember that. That is a mosquito. And this takes just a fraction of a second. How about that? This is what we're talking about. The receptor, the circuit, and then the perceptual level. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah. They've got this down. It doesn't matter. We could just pain, cold, heat. They don't really do a good job of showing us going to the spine, but this is the receptor level when it gets here. When it gets to the spine and all the way up to the thalamus, that's well, and also to the motor. Well, there we go. The somatosensory cortex. This is where the guys are going to make sense of what they're telling, the sensor is telling. And in addition, with our memory and the association, we're going to decide what it is and what we need to do about it. Does that make sense?
A tiny bit.
Well, if you think about it, it's kind of logical. We got sensors to tell us what's going on around us and on top of our skin and all this. And if something trips those sensors, let's put it this way. If, say you got a burglar alarm in your home, you know, the windows and the doors, well, that sensor is just going to tell you that it's been moved, like the window. That's not going to tell you that there's a burglar there. That's all it's capable of doing, is saying this is moved. But it goes through the wires, which is the same as the circuit, gets to a person on the end who says that this window has been moved. And at that point, somebody recognizes that this could be a burglar. How about that?
That makes more sense.
That's all it's doing. It's like a tripwire. It's telling us what's going on, but the big picture is going to be in the brain, because that's its function.
Okay.
So, they may have another one down here. Yeah. Same thing. Receptor, that's really going to be this going to send all this stuff. Circuit level is just sending it up. Perception is what the brain does. Put a lot of these in here. Oh, not that one. Corticospinal, we don't need to know a lot of that. There's the motor homunculus there, but we don't need to go over that again either.
On the slide, on 14, where it says integration, I noted down crosses over. I don't know why that just doesn't stick in my head.
Yeah. So this is my right arm. It's going to that sensory neuron. It's going to, excuse me. Excuse me. It's going up here and going all the way up there. But between the spine and the thalamus, if you guys remember, these guys cross over. So it's going to be the left half of the thalamus that's going to receive it, and it's going to the left side of the somatosensory cortex. Remember the decussation of the pyramids. So all of those come down and then they just cross over. So the right sensation is going to be interpreted by the left side of your brain. That's all that means.
Okay. Hold on, I'm looking at my notes to find my next question.
Not a problem. You take your time, guys.
With all of the different reflexes,
Uh-huh.
what is the best way to keep those straight to, like, best remember what is what?
Well, I mean, think about it. You're going to feel something, so it's got to be sensory, right? It's going to go here. It's going to talk to that neuron right there, that inner neuron. And then he's going to talk to the motor and get him to do something. If you set your hand on something and it's sharp, you're going to pull your hand off. That's all that's doing. So these are going to be the same. What we got into later on is made a more full picture. This is the bare bones of what happens. But as we figured out, not only do I have to, actually goes a little further here, not only do I have to, like, say I put my hand down on a hot stove, I've got to flex my biceps to pull it off, but at the same time, I have to relax the triceps, right? So not only do that one single neuron there is going to be talking to two different motor neurons, the one to move the arm and the one that would normally keep it from moving. And of course, we know it gets more complicated when we do the cross extensor reflex, but this is pretty much all the same. And they're just showing you on two different ones. Just stick to one. So that's all we're saying is that once that sensory sends something in there to that inner neuron, he's going to have to talk to, if you guys remember, the agonist and the antagonist. So if I'm going to flex, then I've got to make sure those extensors are going to be relaxed and not keep me from flexing, right? How about that? Does that make a little bit of sense?
Truthfully, no, but I just don't think I'm going to understand this stuff. It's like,
yes, you will. You can get this.
It's so confusing, and I don't even know what to ask to have you explain it because I don't know how to grasp it from the start.
You can
So I
do
don't know what
this.
to ask.
It's not that hard. I mean, think about it. Okay, you're in your car and you press on the gas pedal, that's going to move you, right?
Yes.
But you also have to take the parking brake off, right?
Yes.
Or else you're not going to move. And that's what we're saying. In this instance, the quadriceps, which are going to contract and move your foot off of a nail or a piece of glass, need to press the accelerator, but at the same time, you've got to go to the hamstrings and say, let off on the brake. How about that?
When you say it like that, it makes more sense. I don't know. I'm just overwhelmed with all.
I think you are overwhelmed. So all you need to do really is after we get finished, just take whatever you think you're having difficulty with and go to YouTube and find a good video, especially if you can find an amoeba sister, because they will give it to you with the ultimate of simplicity. And to be honest with you, even though they're not quite up to our standards and our level, they're going to give you probably enough that you can reason it out.
Okay.
But these muscles, remember, these muscles are all being partially contracted because we have muscle tone. We have to have a certain muscle tone in order to be sitting up or standing up. So we've got to release the brakes on one and press the accelerator on the other in order to make that movement happen. And that's not just a reflex. Anytime you want to do that, anytime you want to move your arm, you got to make sure that the one that does the opposite action is, chilled out. He's not going to oppose it.
Okay. That's all the questions I had written down for 14. Haley, Brittany, did y'all have any questions for 14?
I don't.
You
Yeah,
took
those
you took my questions, so my questions got answered.
not a whole lot in here, guys. Not too bad. Okay, well, I will stop sharing this and
Then
we'll get back.
I have a couple in 15.
Sure. Okay, let's say number 15. Oh, it is in here. 15's not too bad. The only thing you gotta keep the differences and ooh, thought I opened that. I did, but I didn't download it. Or did I? No, I didn't. What? Still should be able to share it. There it is. Okay. Okay, number 15. Okay, guys. What do we need help with on this one?
Slide 4. If you can just go over that whole
Oh
slide
gosh,
again.
that's okay. Let me get a blank slide.
And dumb it down as best as you can.
Okay. So there's the lateral horn. We know that's where the autonomic motor neurons are, right? Then it goes out. Now, this guy is called the presynaptic neuron. We'll just call him pre. Now, if he's in the sympathetic division, he's going to synapse with the second one, which is the postsynaptic. And this thing is going to be like all of 3 inches. And this guy's going to have a long axon because he's got to go to wherever the organs are. How's that? Or going back to my stick figures, that's the
Which,
way these guys. That's
which one is that?
sympathetic. Remember the sympathetic chain ganglion? Right
Kind of.
next. You know, those are those vertical that go down and they've got those ganglia in there. They are close. Let's see. I think I messed up my thing there. Okay. So that neuron is going to have a long axon. So the presympathetic or the presynaptic is going to have a short axon because it's very close to the next neuron in the chain. But the post is a long ways from the organ, so it's going to have a long one. Now, for the parasympathetic, same deal, pre and post. But this guy is way long, and the next neuron is close to or actually inside the walls of the organ. So looking at this guy, he's going to be like this. So the presynaptic axon is humongously long, but the postsynaptic is short. So all the autonomic nerves are motor, and these guys all have 2 motor neurons, unlike the regular that we talked about. So it's really how close together they are. Sympathetic are very close together, parasympathetic way far apart. That's the gist of it right there. And we don't want to even talk about the neurotransmitters yet until you guys have this one down pat. What you think, guys?
So if you were to ask a question about these on the test, how would that be asked?
Postsynaptic neuron is going to be close to the presynaptic in which system? Which one's going to be close? The sympathetic. Here's
Okay.
the way, I mean, seriously, guys, this helped me a lot when I was trying to learn this. I just made some bare bones wire diagrams, and it makes it a lot easier to memorize. Or if the question was, which postsynaptic membrane or postsynaptic neuron can actually be in the walls of the organ? Can't be this guy because he's right next to the spine. It's got to be the parasympathetic, right?
Yes.
Remember the intramural ganglia that we talked about and the terminal parasympathetic?
The words ring a bell, but not a
I know,
strong
a
grasp.
lot going on. But just make yourself some bare bones diagrams and look at those. Just just nothing else on the page but these two things and just kind of figure it out. But you do need to know this terminology. This is the terminology they're going to use on the test banks. And it kind of makes sense. This is the synapse between the two. One of them is in front of the synapse, one of them is behind it, pre and post.
That's about the only part that actually makes sense in my brain.
I don't know why it's that way, why these guys are so close together and the others are so far apart. It's just the way that we're built.
Just to confuse people.
Yes.
And then another thing in this chapter that I just could not wrap my brain around was the
Yes.
muscarinic receptors.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to go down there. Once you got the post and presynaptic done, then we can go and let me put a new slide. Okay. So I'm just going to use X's for neurons. Okay. That's going to be our sympathetic. And there he is ending wherever he's going to go, a muscle or whatever. And here's our parasympathetic. We already know how this plays out. Now let's talk about what they use to talk to each other. Turns out that we use the same neurotransmitter in both of these. And if you look right here, you're going to see that these are all going to be nicotinic. So the acetylcholine, we remember we talked about that when we did muscles. But there's two kinds. There's nicotinic and muscarinic. Well, everybody uses this for between the pre and the post synaptic neurons. And not only that, but the regular motor neurons also use this when they talk to our muscles. Remember what I told you guys is look at the exceptions. That is always going to be acetylcholine, nicotinic is going to be everywhere except, now we talk about the exceptions. At the end of this guy, it's going to be norepinephrine. At the end of this guy, it's going to be muscarinic acetylcholine. Now there is also one of these guys that is going to use muscarinic acetylcholine, and that's going to be the sympathetic that's going to the sweat glands. So all you got to remember is everything is nicotinic acetylcholine except the postsynaptic sympathetic is going to use norepinephrine, and the postsynaptic parasympathetic is going to use muscarinic, as does the sweat gland controllers of the sympathetic.
Will you say that whole sentence one more time?
I sure will. everything is going to be nicotinic acetylcholine. Let's just put that in our heads. Everything uses that, except on the parasympathetic, it uses muscarinic acetylcholine. On the sympathetic, most of those are going to use norepinephrine. And in the ones that go to the sweat glands, they're going to be muscarinic as well. So really all you need to know is three things. Everything is nicotinic except this, that, and that. I mean, they got a lot of busy stuff in here, but that's basically what they're showing. See, even that one is going to be nicotinic, but on the sweat glands, it's going to be muscarinic. This guy used the irregular somatic motor neuron is also going to use nicotinic acetylcholine. That's why I said all of these are going to use that one between his sympathetic and that one. If you want to put it in different words, you could say all presynaptic neurons use nicotinic acetylcholine. Postsynaptic sympathetic uses either norepinephrine or muscarinic if it's going to the sweat glands. All the parasympathetic postsynaptic use muscarinic. You can probably word that any way you want, but it's easier to remember a rule and just remember a few exceptions. That's the way it's always been for me. I don't know about anybody else. I think they got another one down here. They got it, but they don't have it. Acetylcholine, norepinephrine is parasympathetic. They don't have it broken down into nicotinic and muscarinic.
For lecture 4 exam on Tuesday, is it all just straight questions or there are diagrams to label?
I can't really remember. I made that earlier this past week, so I don't remember. It's not going to be anything like the second and third exam. There may be some diagrams, but not much. And if they are, they're going to be very basic stuff. Nothing like this. If you see these, it'll be more in a verbal question. What neurotransmitter is used by the sympathetic nervous system at the organ they innervate, except for the sweat glands? Or what does it use on the blood vessels to constrict them? Well, according to that, it uses norepinephrine. Or they could ask you, what's the neurotransmitter used when the sympathetic nervous system is stimulating the sweat glands? It's muscarinic, acetylcholine. But just draw yourself some super simple diagrams. Have as little as possible in there, just bare bones. This is the way to get this stuff down.
Okay, well, that's all my questions. Any pointers you want to give us, since us three are trying to learn more and understand better?
Well, the pointers are just what I've told you. Make yourself some really super simple diagrams to study with. You can also use those to quiz yourself to make sure you got this down. You can watch my videos, but you've already heard me explain it. I would find somebody else to and see how they explain it. They may explain it in a way that I'm not doing and that might click with you. The more people you have explain things to you, the more likely you are to actually grasp it. And unlike the lab, I try to have little memorization as possible in the lecture. I want you to grasp the concepts, not memorize a bunch of random facts. So if you grasp the concepts, it's also the lazy person's way of doing it, because this is the way I did it. And I'm as lazy as they come.
Could you, well, if you can think of them, like a couple test question examples?
Well, let me see. I might be able to find. Let's see if I can find a couple. Okay. Chapter 13. Let's see. Let's see. Find one here someplace. Okay, number 17. Broca's area A corresponds to Brodmann area of 8. Did I ever tell you guys anything about Brodmann's area 8?
Negative.
Then that's probably not the right answer then, is it?
Nope.
You're right. B is usually found in the right hemisphere. Well, most people are right-handed, and that means their left hemisphere is dominant. So I'd say that would probably be wrong too. C serves the recognition of complex objects. Is this part of the visual association cortex? I don't think so. And then here's the answer. D is considered a motor speech area. That wasn't hard, was it?
Can that test question be on the test? Because I knew that one.
I don't remember, seriously, but it shows up quite a bit because it's the kind of questions that I like to ask. Okay, let me find you one from chapter 14. We'll just do multiple choice. Okay, here's a good one. 10. In a crossed extensor reflex, if the right arm was injured, it would flex and the left arm would it flex? Would it AB duct? Would it AD duct? Or would it extend? The guys, it's called a crossed extensor. What do you think? It would extend, right?
Extend.
That's why they don't call it a crossed abduction or crossed adduction reflex. Sometimes the answer is right there in the question. Something really simple. If the anterior root of a spinal nerve were cut, what would happen in the tissue that nerve supplies? What would happen if you cut the axon in the anterior root? What would happen?
The message isn't going to get sent.
Oh, specifically, what happens? This is asking you, do you know what that neuron does? What does that neuron do?
I don't know.
Interior horn does what? Is the motor neuron. So if you lose motor neuron, then you're going to have complete loss of voluntary movement in that area. Now, if they had said in the dorsal root, you could have said you would lose sensation in that area. That question just really asking you, what does the neuron on the anterior root do? That's all that's asking. Okay, let's find one from number 15. Let's see. And we'll do another multiple choice question. That one's not. There it is. Don't really have a lot of questions on this one in my test bank. Now, this one is asking you, where would you not find a nicotinic receptor? Now, they use the word cholinergic. That means acetylcholine. What receptor does not use acetylcholine? The nicotinic variety. Well, let's see what the questions are. Skeletal muscle motor end plates. Well, they use nicotinic. Adrenal medulla hormone producing cells. Well, really, you could get those there too. That question is not really good, but it's all I got. All postganglionic neurons. No. Some of them do use those. I mean, the postganglionic neurons are all going to have acetylcholine receptors because we only use nicotinic acetylcholine between the two neurons.
Is this the sweat gland one?
Oh. The sweat gland uses muscarinic, so it wouldn't count. But the absolute one place that you won't find a cholinergic nicotinic receptor is on the parasympathetic target organs because they all use muscarinic. You could also maybe get that one on the adrenal medulla. That could have been phrased a lot better, but it's what I've got on here, guys. That's which of the following is not a result of parasympathetic stimulation? A, salivation. B, dilation of the pupils. C, increased peristalsis of the digestive viscera. And D, elimination of urine. Salivation is associated with the GI tract. So do you think that would be parasympathetic? Everybody say yes. C is increased peristalsis or movement of the GI tract. We just said, yeah. Elimination of urine. We know that defecation and urination are parasympathetic. Dilation of the pupils. Dilation is when we open them up. That's sympathetic. I'm not sure I would do that one on y'all. That was, well, that's really all I got on there. I don't have a lot on there. I got some true, false, and all that. I don't even remember what I got on there, but anyway, that's kind of what we got. So what you think, guys?
I think that I'm very nervous for this test.
Don't be. You'll shoot yourself in the foot if you're nervous.
I'm
You
nervous
want to
too.
do the things that you know, and that's the saddest part. So if you feel like you've studied enough, take my advice and take the night off and rest and relax and chill. If you do need to study, still you need to chill. I made it a point never to study the night before a test.
Well, I can't study tomorrow because I work till 6:30 and I won't get home
Yes,
till like 8. But
well,
tonight,
but the one thing you want to do to make sure you go in there is to have yourself chill. You've got to be stable and calm, or else your stress is going to lead you astray. And I see this time after time after time.
but I'm coming in with my Scantron, so I'm going to be prepared.
Good deal. But look at some of the Amoeba Sister stuff, and I think you'll. I think you can find a lot of answers, at least to the point that you need. If you can understand it, remember, you can always come up if you don't understand what the question's asking, and I can make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
Okay.
Sound
Sounds as good as it's going to get.
Sometimes that's as good as it will be.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys?
I'm good. Well, I'm not good, but I'm good on questions.
Okay. Well, look, I'll get this video posted just as quick as it gets processed, and I'll put it on my channel.
All right.
And
We
meanwhile,
appreciate your
try to
time.
chill out. Huh?
I said we appreciate your time.
I wish I could do more, guys. I really do. Y'all have a great rest of the evening, okay?
Oh, can I ask you a question? Do you know if we ever made it to the 80% with the surveys?
Oh, I don't know, but I do get a piece of news. It came in actually yesterday. They have decided that instead of 2 and 3 points, you're going to get 5 points, lab and lecture, for that.
So 5 points on both if we get 80%?
If you get 80% in lecture, you're going to get 5 extra points. And if you get 80% in lab, you get 5 points in there.
But
so
you
they
haven't,
have up,
you
they've upped the
haven't,
number of points you're going to get.
but you haven't gotten the word that we're at 80% yet.
No,
for
ma'am,
either
they
class?
haven't said anything about it. So, talk amongst yourselves, and I'll make this announcement tomorrow in class. Hopefully, folks will go for it. I mean, oh goodness, giving away points. I'll take
For
them.
real. Okay, I wish there was like a checklist of who's done them.
Yeah, but that kind of defeats the purpose of their being anonymous.
Oh,
So
I know.
they will. That's the problem. But yeah, you guys go